democracy. You will never take me alive.
ESPN Speed World welcomes you to Budds Creek, Maryland, as we get set for round 4 of the AMA 250cc Outdoor Motocross Series.
Hello, everyone. I'm John Kernan, along with former motocross champion David Bailey. And David, this week, a big story, the return of the defending national champion, Mike LaRocco.
That's right, Mike LaRocco showing the speed, the defending champion, and what a heartbreak at the first race to break his wheel, and then in a supercross race, breaking his arm. He's missed the past 2 rounds, and it's going to take, I think, a little while for him to get back into the swing of things. It's easy to go fast at home, but in competition on a day this hot, it's going to be tougher. And also the confidence in his arm. Does he have the strength in there to go 2 30-minute motos?
Well, last time at Mount Morris, we had the return of Damon Bradshaw, and I guess you could say he kind of tore things up.
Well, he knocked himself out, and his bike knocked out a few trees in the back section. I don't think he remembers much about that, which is probably a good thing, but that's one of the things that makes Damon Bradshaw unique. He gives it 100%, and I would expect today he'll be more consistent.
Well, speaking of consistency, Doug Henry has certainly seemed to have found that. He wins at Mount Morris his first Outdoor 250 title, and now he's within 1 point of Jeremy McGrath.
That's right. Putting the pressure on Jeremy McGrath. No one's been able to do that indoor or out all year, and now Doug's doing it. He looks like he's got the speed and the confidence outdoors, which is something he lacked indoors, and I think it's looking really good for Honda right now.
Well, we're following a lot of storylines here at Budds Creek. We'll get to them in just a moment, but first, let's take a look at the track.
Budds Creek is laid out in a valley. You go up and down a lot of hills, in and out of the woods. It doesn't get very rough here, so it's going to be really fast.
What's the toughest part of the track?
Well, as always, the start's always important. Here it's a steep uphill, so that's going to be one of the challenges. And the rest of it is pretty much it's a simple track. A lot of off-camber corners, so choosing lines is important.
There you get a look at the man making his return, Mike LaRocco LaRocket, the 250 defending national champion after missing 2 rounds after breaking his arm, as you saw in that Charlotte Supercross. The way the points stack up right now, Doug Henry's in 2nd place. He follows his Honda teammate Jeremy McGrath by a slim 1 point. Of course, Doug picking up his first 250 outdoor national win last time at Mount Morris. Jeff Emming, Mike Kudrowski in the top 4. In fact, David, 13 points is all that separates the top 4 in the points.
It's a pretty tight battle, and it's the most competition and the most depth in the 250 class I've seen in probably 8 or 9 years.
Well, the 40 riders are getting set. You know, normally we go to commercial break, but I tell you what, the action here at Budds Creek promises to be fast and furious, very exciting. So we are going to get right down to business, David.
That's right, and you see how the bike number 114 there of Damon Bradshaw, disappointing 15th last weekend in his comeback effort. Obviously running the pace, though, running up front. I think this week, as I mentioned, he'll probably be a little more consistent. Also, Mike LaRocco, his first ride back, and he picked a hot one.
Well, with LaRocco, I mean, he's been off for about 2 months. Hasn't been able to ride back into shape, right? I mean, this is going to be a real test to see just how good that practice time that he did get in before coming here has done for him.
Exactly. We heard in an interview last weekend with Damon Bradshaw that he'd been able to ride at home, but it's nothing like riding against 40 other riders.
Well, there they go up the hill. There's the start that David talked about, and we'll see who gets the hole shot. Can't see from that angle right there, but a little bit of a log jam as they go into that first turn. In fact, there's one rider already down. It's number 72, and that's Bruce Stratton. He's out of Earlville, New York, but no harm, no foul. He gets going, and look at that. LaRocco immediately out front, being pursued by the Honda Red Riders. Doug Henry in second, and Jeremy McGrath is in third.
Well, what an awesome script this is. LaRocco, not known for his starts, pulls the hole shot in his first race back, followed by the two fastest riders on the circuit right now. Number 4, Doug Henry, only 1 point behind his teammate right there, number 3, Jeremy McGrath. They lead this series.
And you saw also number 6, Jeff Emig, in there on the Yamaha. He's in fourth. A couple of riders having some problems from negotiating this turn. First one, 25 on the Honda Troy bike. That's Todd DeHoop. He's back after knee surgery. He worked as a mechanic for his brother Chad at Mount Morris. And there's factory Phil Lawrence, who's actually independent Phil Lawrence, as he gets it back up and gets started. But back up front, you've got Mike LaRocco being hotly pursued by Doug Henry.
There's no better way to come back to the action than with a hole shot. And right now we're going to find out if LaRocco's got the endurance to run the pace of these guys.
Well, he certainly knows how to get around this track. Last year with the overall victory. In fact, David, last year LaRocco won both motos, but now it's starting to heat up. He comes back up, and Doug Henry tries an outside move over the jump. He seems to be closing in. We are in the opening lap of Moto number 1 here at Budds Creek. As you take a look at our Suzuki field summary, find your favorite rider. Back with more action after this. Welcome back to Budds Creek, Maryland. David Bailey, Art Ekman, and John Kernan along with you. Nothing has changed up front. You've still got Mike LaRocco, but he is hotly pursued by Doug Henry, Jeremy McGrath. Things are really tightening up as you see Greg Albertine standing there in the 5th spot.
And Damon Bradshaw just went by. A pretty good start for him, so he's up and running with the leaders, which is where he wants to be. And this is an interesting battle right now because LaRocco, who's missed a couple of rounds, really it doesn't factor into the points chase for this title, but between the 2 riders behind him, McGrath and Henry, as it sits right now, Henry holds the points lead. So if he could make a pass right now and put LaRocco between himself and Jeremy, he could pick up quite a few points.
Well, David, not to confuse anyone watching at home, you're talking about as they're running on the course right now, points were awarded right now that Doug would actually be in front of Jeremy. Well, LaRocco is leading it right now. A lot of questions about that arm. Has it healed up? Let's check in with Art Ekman.
Mike Sr., with the great speeds that he attains on this track and all the downhill action, is that tougher on that hurt arm than it would be if it were more technical?
Yeah, it's going to be hard on him because there's a lot of hard landings here and there's a lot of jarring, but he's pretty tough. He's taking it easy. We'll see what happens. So we're not making any predictions yet.
He never makes a prediction, does he? Well, I've got to ask you, David, with LaRocco coming back with broken arm, his father says he's taking it easy. Is he doing that just to check it out to make sure everything's okay?
Well, I'd hate to see when he's not taking it easy because he's got the fastest riders in the world right here. He's got a world champion. He's got McGrath, who I don't need to say any more about him. Emig's on the move right now. Looks like he's going to make a move on McGrath right there, and he does to the inside, and LaRocco's still holding all these guys at bay.
Now they come back down the hill. Albertine tried to go inside to try and pick off a spot from Jeremy, but just couldn't do it. Jeremy now trying along the outside. Look at that speed as they come up the jump. Jeremy almost pulling even with Emig, and now he's going to squirt ahead. And look, they're catching up with Doug Henry. It is really getting heated up. Here's the action for second spot. Doug Henry, Jeff Emig, then you've got Jeremy McGrath, and right behind them, the 3-time world champion, Greg Albertine.
And just a little further back, you got Damon Bradshaw. He's looking like he might move to the front. And Doug Henry here, it looked like he was challenging LaRocco on the opening lap. It looked like he was searching, had some different lines, but LaRocco has answered, and look, he's already pulled away. He's up in the top of the hill. Right now, it looks like the fastest rider on the track has got to be Emig.
Well, when you get some side-by-side racing, you're naturally going to slow down a little bit. It's a lot easier to run out there by yourself, isn't it? You have to be a little more careful when you're side-by-side.
Sure. Well, what happens here is maybe these guys are protecting their line. I know that Jeremy probably was in a position where if he would have done something different, Emig would have slid in there, which is exactly what happened. And Henry's in that same position now. If he goes and tries any extra lines, he's not close enough to move around LaRocco right now, but if he tries anything different, he leaves the door wide open and Emig can ride right through it.
What do you think's going through LaRocco's mind right now? He's probably, oh, look at this. Jeremy now trying to take back that 3rd spot. We'll get back to that thought in just a moment. But Emig manages to hold him off for the time being. Man, this is great. I guess Jeremy sees that Doug is starting to pull away just a little bit, put a little distance, and now Albertine making a move for that 4th spot. A little bit of contact. Albertine washes out and loses some ground. Man, that's great racing.
Well, this is a great battle, and to get back to LaRocco, I think that he's just glancing over his shoulder every chance he gets and reading the pit board, and he notices that these guys are all having a great battle amongst themselves. Possibly in the process they're holding up the speed and that's allowing him to ride with a pretty good cushion at the moment.
Well, I know LaRocco in great shape, at least whenever he was riding all the time, had that little extra for the last 15 minutes of these 30-minute motos. You got to wonder if he's going to tire out toward the second half of this moto.
Well, in his, I think it's to his advantage today, though. The track, as I mentioned, doesn't get that rough. It's very hot and humid, but it's not getting that rough. Great action between Jeremy and Emig right now, and Jeremy getting the upper hand.
I guess I'm going to have to quit asking you questions, because every time I ask you a question and you answer it, the action really gets great. But Jeremy makes that move. He moves along into third place as Emig now is being challenged by Albertine. Albie still trying to get all these American tracks figured out, but I've been very impressed with the way he rides this year.
Well, he's had a chance to ride on this track before. The U.S. Grand Prix, one of the rounds came to Budds Creek, and he didn't have a very good day, so I'm sure he'd like to redeem himself. And now he's in the points battle for the national championship, so it's very important for him to stay with these leaders and just for his own confidence, to know that he can run with them and to be a threat.
There you see Jeff Emig is now in fourth place, being followed by Greg Albertine, who is in fifth place. We've got a great battle. Albertine seventh in the points currently. Of course, remember, he got off to a pretty good start second in the first moto at Gainesville, but he broke a wheel and DNF in that second moto. We are in the mid stages of moto number 1 here at Budds Creek, Maryland. Mike LaRocco continues to lead it as you get a look at the top 10 on our Suzuki Field Summary. Back at Budds Creek, Maryland, round 4 of the AMA 250cc Outdoor Motocross Series. It is an absolute scorcher out there for not only the riders, but for the fans. And you got to wonder, how long can these guys keep up this kind of pace, David, before they tire out?
Well, I think they're all going to tire at the same time. Then it's just going to come down to guts and digging a little deeper. As we came back from the break, Emig went over that plateau, and in the air, he looked over to see where the leaders are. So he wants to go to the front.
Well, Emig right now running in fourth place. Albertine is in fifth. The leader continues to be Mike LaRocco, with Doug Henry trying to close ground. But here's the action for that fourth spot down the hill. The right-hand turn. And look at Emig. Looks like Albertine's not trying a different line there. He just tried to stay in his line.
Maybe he's trying to learn from Emig. Emig's looking ahead to see where those guys are. He's not looking behind them. And I've seen him do that before, look behind. And that's usually showing weakness, or geez, how many more positions can I lose before I can relax? And Emig's looking ahead, so possibly, although McGrath was able to repass him, he hasn't given up yet.
Well, look at Albertine now. He tries to go outside and then cut it back underneath, but Emig gets a good bite off the berm. But now here comes Albie. Albie to the outside, lays it down over the jump. Albertine momentarily takes over the fourth spot as Emig, I don't know, Emig slows way down right there. I wonder if he's starting to pump up, but no, now Emig gets on the gas hard over it, side by side, up this jump. Now they'll go into that left-hander, and we move back up front. As you see, Doug Henry has closed in on Mike LaRocco, and Jeremy McGrath is not too far behind.
Well, it looks like Doug and Jeremy both have settled into the pace that they're capable of running, which is at least as fast as LaRocco, maybe a little quicker. They have closed the gap. I don't think it's LaRocco starting to tire this early in the race. I think that both Henry and McGrath have picked up the pace, and this is going to get good. It looks like they've left Emig and Albertine now. Those guys have apparently dropped off the pace, or apparently they're running the same pace. And like I said, two Honda guys are going fast.
Well, you got to look back at Emig and Albertine. Those guys, a lot of side-by-side racing, and, you know, that slows you down quite a bit, and it allows these guys running in single file to kind of just move right on ahead. As you look back, here we go about a 3.5, 4 second separation. And look, Mike Kudrowski, who got off to not a great start. We saw him maybe mid-pack. He has worked his way up into the 6th position, and he may be challenging for that 5th spot in the top 5. Of course, Kudrowski winning the overall out at Hangtown. And you saw Emig look off to his side. He's once again trying to keep those leaders in sight.
Well, it seems that way. He's just passed through the mechanics area after they come down the hill, and he's looking over already. So maybe the time on the board, Emig's going, no, that can't be right. And he's looking over to find out, and he's actually losing quite a bit of time.
Well, Emig right now has his hands full. Albertine is moving in, trying to take over that 4th spot, and also Kudrowski is riding along in 6th. He promises to make this battle, this 3-bike battle, very interesting. Down the hill they come. Let's see if Albertine follows the same line as Emig this time, or if he learns something. No, he stays right there as Kudrowski does too.
It looks like the inside berm has a lot more braking bumps getting into it. It's difficult to get out of there. It's kind of rough, so the riders are elected to go through the middle there. Those berms will get rougher every lap, and you've got to remember, when you go through a berm or anywhere on the racetrack where it's starting to get rougher, 40 more guys come through there before you get a chance to come around again. So they make a mental note of that, and they'll make an adjustment. If the berm's getting pushed wide, if they can remember, they'll hit it early and try to get out.
Back up front, the battle now for second place, Doug Henry and his teammate Jeremy McGrath. These two separated by only 1 point heading into today's action in the race for the national championship. And David, I believe they are closing in on LaRocco. Henry has really narrowed that gap.
Well, I think LaRocco is, I don't think he's capable of going much faster than he's going. Otherwise, he would have been able to respond. Right now, I think the Honda guys are just going quite a bit faster, and Doug right here looks really strong.
Well, Doug knows his way around this track. Last year, he was third overall. Of course, that was on a 125. He's coming off of his first national win in the 250cc series. How much confidence do you think he's got right now?
Well, I think he's got quite a bit. Now the Supercross season's over. He can focus completely on the outdoors. He's only 1 point shy of the points lead, so he's got to be feeling good.
Well, he's doing really well right now. Let's check into his pit with Art Ekman.
Hey, what a great battle we've got going for the first place pocket.
Oh yeah, you can see it as plain as I can see it, and it's not over yet. We've got 3 guys trying to chase down the first moto win, but I can't tell you who's going to come out on top.
This is such a speedy track. One little mistake could really could not only put you out for 1 moto, but could put you out for 2.
Yeah, I see some guys falling and they have a hard time recovering, but maybe one thing that we've got an advantage, Doug and Jeremy, is they've been racing a little bit. And LaRocco, he's been sitting out for at least a month and a half.
Back out on the track, trouble for Mike Kudrowski. He's looking at that front wheel.
Well, I don't know what, it could be a front flat maybe. No, it's not a flat. I don't know what it is. He's obviously nervous about it, and he's definitely dropped off the pace. And remember right there, LaRocco, the first race, broke a front hub, so I don't think Kudrowski's going to be too aggressive if he's got something going wrong up there he's not sure about.
Well, Kudrowski just moved up into the 6th spot, contending for the top 5, but he drops out of the top 10 as you look at our Suzuki Field Summary. Back with more in a moment. Back at Budds Creek, Maryland, moto number 1, and getting set for Mike Kudrowski to come in, and they're going to do a little repair work on that front wheel.
Well, it's not uncommon in car racing to see a guy come in and with a problem and get back out with a caution, possibly get back into the race. But right here, this is devastating for Kudrowski in terms of the points. And there's some plastic hanging off the fork leg right there. That may have damaged the wheel. I don't know.
Well, Kudrowski in the pits right now cost him a lot of time. Let's check in with Art Ekman and find out exactly what the problem is.
Ryan, what was the problem now with Mike's bike?
Well, when he tried to pass Albertine over here in the corner after the finish line, Albertine ran into him. So what happened was he thought the front wheel was broke. What it turned out, it was one of the fork guards. So the guys ran back and got some wheels, but it turned out when he got here, all it was a fork guard.
Good luck.
Heartbreaker, but I guess all it does is makes a little noise, right?
Well, he wasn't sure. I mean, I guess it would have sounded like a cart in the spokes, kind of like a bicycle, but I'm sure it's not funny for these guys. It didn't turn out to be as serious, though, as he thought, and he was able to get back to the action pretty quickly.
He dropped probably 10, 15 spots, maybe. Now you get a look up front. Actually, second place, Doug Henry with that double right there is leading Jeremy McGrath. Jeremy still hasn't been able to do anything with Doug, and LaRocco, meanwhile, has pulled away from these two.
Well, you can see LaRocco way up the track there and has pulled out quite a bit of lead. These guys closed in on him, and I'm not sure if they have possibly dropped off the pace or if LaRocco has responded with some speed of his own, but he's definitely opened it up.
I'll tell you, from the looks of things right now, Doug Henry certainly knows what he's talking about. He's riding along in second place, but look at Jeremy McGrath. He has closed in. Jeremy, as we're getting into the second portion of moto number 1, is trying to make a bid. He tries a different line on the outside, sweeps it back in off the berm, but he just can't make the move. Now they get ready to come down the hill. McGrath on the outside. Doug Henry gets a little better traction coming off of that jump as he moves back out into that second spot. Meanwhile, back up front, there's LaRocco. You get a good look at the separation. And man, these two Honda teammates are getting ready to do some serious battle out there.
Well, I think what's going to happen now is Jeremy's pretty clever. He just stayed in the race and stayed within contact and inside of the leader and not really tried to do anything. But now it's obvious he's picked up the pace and he's going to start making his move. And what that's going to do do is it's going to force Henry to go a little faster, maybe to make a mistake. But I think either way, both these guys are going to catch LaRocco.
Well, LaRocco riding out by himself, nobody pushing him, and now McGrath putting a serious push on Doug Henry. They'll come into this turn and go back up the hill. McGrath still in hot pursuit, but Doug Henry managing to hold him off right now. They both do the double in front of the fans. McGrath picking up just a little bit of ground as they come into this turn. Jeremy is really pressuring his teammate.
Jeremy's going inside, he's going outside, he's trying different lines, and that's the only way you can make the pass. The other thing you can do too is even if you don't really make up much time, you make the rider in front of you nervous.
Well, there you get a good look as LaRocco leads our Suzuki Field Summary. Back with more from Budds Creek after this. Thank you. That's Art Ekman. He's down in the pits. David Bailey, John Kernan up here in the booth. We're watching the battle heat up for second place in the closing stages here, Moto number 1 at Budds Creek, Maryland. It looks like Jeremy's dropped off just a little bit. You think he's going to search out some lines and try to put a move on Doug on maybe the last lap?
Well, it takes a lot of energy to make a move like that. And yeah, I think he's going to try something on the last lap, if not sooner. But what happens is you make a push and you ride just a little bit out of your comfort zone, and you're also in that roost, and it takes so much energy. You got to save some for the second moto. So he'll probably run in there, make a bid, and if you can't make anything happen, drop back, kind of regroup, and try and go in there again.
Speaking of regrouping, Jeff Emig and Greg Albertine, remember they had lost a lot of ground to McGrath and Henry, but they're starting to close in. They've picked up the pace. They're not battling so much side by side for this 4th spot. They're in line trying to catch up, it looks like.
Well, it looks like they have. They've closed the gap a little bit, but they're kind of locked into their own battle, and Doug and Jeremy are pretty far up the track.
Jeff Emig last year on a 125 here at Budds Creek finished in 2nd overall. Get a good look back at Albertine. Albie trying to figure things out here, trying to get the right lines. He's followed Emig around and found out what Emig feels are the fastest lines. And now look at Albie. He tries to make it on the inside as Emig swings way outside Albertine. For a moment, I thought he had him as they come back down the hill, nearly side by side. But Emig on the Yamaha pulls away just a little bit from that Suzuki.
Well, maybe Albertine's best trick is to run into his bike and break that plastic front fork guard. That worked before.
Now Albertine trying now. Oh, look at that. A little bit of a wheel on the rear fender of Emig, but Emig keeps the bike up. Albie backs out of the throttle, and now Emig squirts away. What a great battle for 4th place. You'd think these guys were battling for the lead.
Well, in defense to Albertine, I mean, he's not riding dirty, but that's on this track, everyone's pretty much going the same pace, and like I said, it's not really that rough. So there's a fast line out there, and there's nowhere really else that they can go and make up time. So you just got to go in there and sort of push them out of the way, and that's what worked for Albertine so far. He's trying it on Emig, but Emig will not budge.
Once again, this is battle for 4th place. Jeff Emig in 4th. Greg Albertine, the 3-time world champion, riding along in 5th. I think a lot of casual motocross fans, when they heard that a 3-time world champion was coming over to the United States to race, figured that Albertine would run away with everything. But he's found the American riders, they're not too shabby.
No, they're pretty good. I mean, he started off the season looking good. He led almost the entire first moto of this championship series with LaRocco breathing down his neck, and he looked like he was going to be a real threat. And look at Damon Bradshaw now has caught these two. Apparently, we just brought up the fact that they're going fast. They pick up their pace and moved in on the Honda riders, and Bradshaw's catching everybody.
Well, you got to wonder how long it's going to take Bradshaw to get back into form. Well, I wondered that about Mike LaRocco at the top, and LaRocco already looks like he's back into form, but he was only off a couple of months versus almost 2 years for Damon Bradshaw, who's now moved into the 6th position and looks like he wants to challenge Albie for that 5th spot.
Well, it looks like he's definitely closing. He's closing fast. And for LaRocco, it looks like he should take time off more often. He doesn't usually get that good a start and ride this well. He did well here last year, but I really didn't expect him to do as well, and I'm actually really surprised that he's still out front.
Well, LaRocco doing a great job in his return. Of course, he's doing such a great job that he has no action around him. That's why you're not seeing a lot of LaRocco right now. He is pulled away from Doug Henry, who's riding along in 2nd place. Well, no, actually, look at this. Now they've caught him, I believe. LaRocco might have slowed down a little bit, and Henry and McGrath might have sped up as they have closed the gap. Probably cut it just about. Oh, my gosh, down the hill, Doug Henry. A major crash at the bottom of this jump, and Doug flips off the goggles, and oh my goodness, looks to be in a lot of pain. There comes one of the corner workers over.
I can't believe what I just saw.
That was unbelievable. Down all the way to the bottom. Doug Henry obviously in a lot of pain. You see one of the AMA officials with the flags to make sure that they direct the bikes away to keep Doug Henry safe, but that was just unbelievable.
Let's see if we can figure out what happens. It looks like he falls to the rear of the bike and just grabbed a handful of throttle right there. Look at now, high in the air.
And then the compression as he lands, flips over, and rolls, and that absorbs some of the impact, but that landing.
I've been around motocross my whole life, and I've never seen anything quite like that. I guess on the brighter side, he seems to be moving on his own. That's a good sign. You can see his shadow right there behind LaRocco.
Oh, look how much farther he does the jump. Oh.
Well, I think he did the right thing by staying on the motorcycle. I would imagine that was, I can't figure out how that happened. I know he didn't do that on purpose, but it might have been a natural reaction to just throw the bike away, but by staying on it, he got another foot of travel to help absorb that impact. That's the most amazing impact I've ever seen.
And then he did roll, and that absorbs a little more of the impact, and he was moving, and it looked like one of the safety workers had talked to him, so it looks like Doug was alert, but we certainly want to keep an eye on that situation. Is there you get a shot, and Doug's moving his hands, getting ready to take his gloves off. That is a good sign, but obviously he's in a lot of pain, and we do not want to speculate about this, but just that landing, that was just terrible. One of the worst things I've ever seen.
Well, LaRocco has no idea what's going on behind him. He's just excited to be leading his first moto, coming back from a broken arm, and McGrath was right behind, saw that entire sequence, and has to be, I think that has to mess with his head a little bit. I mean, to go up and race with LaRocco right now is probably the last thing on his mind. I'm sure, I know Jeremy enough to know that he's got to be concerned with his teammate, and look at that, Emig has already closed the gap.
But he's not going to have enough time around the last turn. There's LaRocco to take the checkered flag. Jeremy McGrath is second. Jeff Emig, a fine ride, closes to finish in the third position. But what a return for the defending champion. Missed 2 outdoor nationals, nearly 2 months of competitive action. But Mike LaRocco comes back to win Moto #1, followed by McGrath, Emig, Albertine, and Bradshaw. And as you take a look at the rest of the top 10, Art Ekman has caught up with our winner.
Mike LaRocco, a perfect track to come back off the injured list, that's for sure, after sweeping 2 last year and getting the good start this year.
Yeah, it feels good to be back on a bike. I've been waiting a long time. My injury kind of, screwed me up for a while and got me down, but, I planned on it for 2 or 3 weeks coming back here at Butts Creek, and, I want to get the whole shot and lead every lap, and that's what I did. I feel good.
Updating you on Doug Henry, still out on the track. Safety personnel are working with him. Art Ekman is standing by with his teammate.
Jeremy, first of all, you were the closest to the action, but I'm not sure what you saw about Doug Henry flying through the air.
Well, he made a mistake in the corner before that, kind of slid out over that double, cased it, and I come up right beside him on the right-hand side, and we both brake together, and then all of a sudden, he just gassed it. And, I couldn't believe he was on the throttle at all. I mean, that's the biggest jump on the track, and, he must have flew 60 feet in the air. And, I was amazed. I just watched him through the air the whole way, and I knew if he saved that one, he was definitely a hero, but I hope he's all right.
Well, there you see Doug Henry's on the backboard, and look at that, the thumbs up as he shows the fans as they will take him to the hospital where he'll be checked out. Well, 39 riders getting set for the start of Moto #2. Of course, Doug Henry on his way to the hospital. You saw the open slot there.
Well, that's going to dramatically change the points chase for this title. Now, Doug Henry, who was only 1 point behind Jeremy and ahead of him in that moto, would have probably taken over the lead. Now, he's out of the picture. So the next closest guy in the title chase is Jeff Emig, who finished right behind Jeremy in the first moto.
There you see the heat, the riders getting the signboards, not only to communicate, but you can also wave them and get a little air on you. There you see the 30-second board. It goes down. We're just about set for the gate to drop on Moto #2 here at Budds Creek. Well, let's see as they go up the hill who gets the whole shot. Looks like Emig's out in front right now.
Emig looks like he's definitely got a clean start, some congestion in the back, and LaRocco was on the inside going into the corner. It was a nice place to be, even if he didn't get the whole shot, so he should come out of there pretty good.
These riders all get it fired back up on their way. Look at Jeff Emig as he leads Jeremy McGrath, but look at LaRocco coming up on the inside. He sweeps around McGrath to take over that second spot, and if there's any question about LaRocco's fitness, I think it's been answered today.
Definitely, and also Damon Bradshaw, I'm not sure where he started in the first moto. I didn't notice, but he came from off the pace to finish 5th, and if he got a better start this time, he could be a factor.
Well, just as soon as we talk about LaRocco, he gets relegated back to the 3rd spot as Jeremy has gotten around him. And look, here comes the Suzuki. Is that Albertine getting into the side of LaRocco?
Looking for that fork guard again.
Put that in your arsenal. Now Jeremy sweeps around Jeff Emig. McGrath taking over the lead, but just for a second as Emig comes back, but Jeremy up the double manages to pull out in front. And this is just the first lap, folks, as Jeremy McGrath is moved out into the lead on the first lap. Emig with the hole shot. There you get a look at the Honda Field summary. Back with more exciting action from Budds Creek right after this. Welcome back to Budds Creek, Maryland. Art Ekman, David Bailey, and John Kernan bringing you the action as we are in the early stages of Moto number 2.
And Damon Bradshaw right there behind LaRocco looking good. Kudrowski off to a pretty good start. John Dowd sort of off the pace today.
Well, there you see Jeremy McGrath, who got around Jeff Emig just before we went to break, trying to pull out to just a slight advantage. Jeremy, the only rider this year so far to be a repeat winner in motos. Of course, Jeremy winning the overall at Gainesville. Then he also had a moto victory at Mount Morris, where his teammate Doug Henry took the overall victory. But Doug, of course, with that horrifying crash in moto number 1. Of course, we saw when they took him to the ambulance, he gave the thumbs up sign to the fans. So that was quite encouraging for Doug Henry fans. Now, on the track, Emig trying to put the move on McGrath. They come up the hill, and he will swing to the outside, and Jeff Emig, what a great move as Jeremy went inside. Emig making the pass.
Oh, it was a great move, and Emig set that up in the corner before. He squared it off, carried more speed up the hill here. Jeremy's going to try to turn on this inside with his no berm, and it's real slick. Emig goes out there, he can lay it into that berm and be more aggressive, goes right around the outside. He also controls the inside off the drop-off into the next corner. Caught Jeremy sleeping.
Well, McGrath, of course, making that hairpin, trying to cut it off on the inside. You really have to get on the brakes, almost come to a complete stop to make that work. And you see what happens when Emig was just right there to make the move. He's moved back out in front. And look at Greg Albertine, who's moved into the 3rd position, riding 4th right now. Mike LaRocco, who won Moto number 1.
LaRocco, it'd be interesting to see now if LaRocco can come through the pack. And that's what he usually does. And people are always saying stuff like, boy, if he'd have had a couple more laps. Well, we'll see what he can do from a poor start. And Jeremy, I think when he got around Emig, probably just figured that was that. And Emig retaliating and doing exactly what it takes to beat Jeremy McGrath and take him out of his rhythm, and we'll see if it works.
Well, I know in talking with Jeff Emig, just the amount of confidence that the guy has. You know, he moves up from 125. He used to call him Mr. 125. There you see Damon Bradshaw is back making his way into the top 5. But getting back to Jeff Emig, just his confidence level this year is just unbelievable in his first year on the 250s outdoor.
Well, the 250 just seems to suit some riders a lot better. Doug Henry had also made a successful transition, and also Larry Ward looking better. They get to ride the 250 all year long in Supercross and in outdoors, and Emig doing a good job of it.
Now Emig on the outside as Jeremy McGrath tries to cut it in, but look at Greg Albertine. He is really closed up, and we have got a great 3-way battle for the lead. Now Jeremy, following Emig on the outside, tries to cut it off just a little bit short, but it doesn't work as Emig holds on to that first spot.
And I would have expected to see these 3 guys, in a race with themselves, possibly holding each other up. Maybe Emig's got to ride a little more defensive, and to see LaRocco catch up to these guys, but he hasn't done that. If anything, he's lost time, so these guys are going fast.
Well, there you see LaRocco coming back into the picture. He is probably about a second to 2 seconds behind Albertine, but we know LaRocco, the way he's ridden in the past, could make that up in a amount of no time and probably about 1 lap if he sets his mind to it. Well, Jeff Emig is your leader. Let's check in his pits.
Steve Butler, you're always so cool in the pits. Do you ever get excited when Jeff has the lead like this?
Yeah, it's hard not to, but there's still a lot of race to go. And the last moto, Jeff felt his best at the end, so I think he's pretty strong, and I think he can maybe win this.
You might say Emig is just about due for an overall victory at Gainesville, 4th, 2nd at Hangtown, and 5th at Mount Morris.
Well, I think he can maybe win this. Doesn't sound real confident to me. And there goes Jeremy up the inside.
Well, Jeremy McGrath making that look easy. Coming up the inside on the double, gets on the gas a little bit sooner, and gets around Emig to move into the lead. Here's another look at it.
Well, they've just come out of the right-hander. They're heading up to the double jump. And Jeremy's going to choose to go up the inside. He'll control the inside in the corner, and Jeremy just keeps the bike lower to the ground. Watch his body right here. He puts the bike down on the ground with the throttle wide open, much more aggressive than Jeff. And you can see the difference right there.
Takes perfect timing to do that, doesn't it? Or else you could wind up in a lot of trouble.
Sure, Jeremy's just much more aggressive at putting the bike in the places he wants it to go, missing certain bumps, hopping over bumps, and getting it back down to the ground sooner. Usually he soaks up most of the lift in the motorcycle at the peak of the jumps with his body, and he keeps the bike lower to the ground.
Well, there you see Greg Albertine as he's trying to take over that second spot. He's putting a lot of pressure on Jeff Emig. Albie finished 9th at Gainesville overall, came back with a 3rd at Hangtown, and then a disappointing 11th overall at Mount Morris. That's not the way he's wanted to start out this outdoor season, but it looks like he's back in shape today as he is trying to chase down Jeff Emig. But David, look at the amount of distance that Jeremy McGrath has put on Jeff Emig, who sits in 2nd place. There you get a good look at the top 10 in our Honda Field Summary. Back at Butts Creek, Maryland, Art Ekman, David Bailey, and John Kernan. There you look at Mike LaRocco, who won the first moto, and he's gotten around Jeff Emig. Emig is starting to fade. He's dropped all the way back to the 4th spot. Jeremy McGrath is the leader. Greg Albertine is riding in 2nd place.
Well, what set up that move a moment ago was Jeremy was being pressured by Albertine. Albertine had really picked up the pace, was pressuring him, and he said, I got to get out of here. He moved around Emig, and in the process, he's picked up the pace and pulled away from everyone. And LaRocco is also has kept sights on Jeremy McGrath, realized if he wants to win the overall, he's got to chase McGrath, and he's staying in pretty close contact. The 2 fastest riders on the track right now have got to be LaRocco and McGrath.
Well, there you see LaRocco and Jeff Emig right along in the 4th spot. LaRocco is in 3rd. He is in contact with Albertine, but McGrath has pulled out to a pretty sizable advantage. And, you know, you see it in Supercross, you see it outdoors this year at least. When Jeremy gets out front, he's a rocket ship, and he is gone, and it's hard to catch him, nearly impossible.
Well, he's pretty smart the rest of the time. When he doesn't win, I mean, he's been sick this season, and he still holds the points lead, and he really hasn't ridden that good. I know he's just going to get faster and stronger and more confident outdoors as the season rolls along, and right now, seems like he's already pretty much unstoppable and in control of the points chase.
Well, Jeremy with 2 moto victories this year, a 6th at Hangtown is the only blemish out of the top 5, but he is definitely the rider to beat right now. Still looking back at this 3rd place battle between LaRocco and Jeff Emig. And remember our flashback, these two battling for that 125 championship here back, what was it, 3 years ago. And that was when Emig was able to come through with the victory. LaRocco, of course, having that problem, but right now these guys are having a lot of fun as they come down the hill. LaRocco still holding that 3rd position as you get a look at Albertine. Albie just getting ready to make the turn. LaRocco looks like he might have lost a little bit of ground, and there you see Jeff Emig has pulled in just a little bit closer. So Emig trying to work his way back up into the 3rd spot.
Well, as mechanic Steve Butler said, that he rides stronger towards the end of the race, and if anything, that's probably the best time to do it and to put the pressure on LaRocco, because probably if LaRocco has a weakness, it's the end of the race, having not been able to ride in competition and with the uncertainty of his arm.
Of course, everyone making a big deal about LaRocco coming back, also Bradshaw coming back, but it's a little bit different. LaRocco's only missed about 2 months. Bradshaw, on the other hand, a year and a half, almost 2 years.
Well, they're both coming back fresh, but LaRocco doesn't have to relearn everything and figure out. Bradshaw's riding against different riders. He's riding on some tracks he hasn't ridden on before, and everything's different. Even the motorcycle has changed quite a bit since the last time he was riding, so he's got a long ways to go, and he's already shown some promise.
I bet 2nd half of the season, Damon Bradshaw is going to be a name you're going to hear a lot about at the top of the leaderboards here in the Outdoor Nationals for the 250 series.
I hope so, because he's one of the crowd favorites. He's one of my favorite riders, and he does have the potential to ride well, and he's aggressive. He'll get in there and make a race out of things, but first he's got to be in the race to make any kind of moves, and right now he's a little bit off the pace.
Well, let's talk about what we're watching, and that is Mike LaRocco. He won the very first moto. He is now riding along in the 3rd spot. Jeff Emig is in 4th, and now we start to look at the overall with Jeremy out front. Jeremy finished 2nd in the first moto. That means if he can stay in 1st right now, he's going to take the overall victory over LaRocco. LaRocco has to pick up some spots.
Right, and the thing with LaRocco being in the picture now after missing 2 races of being pretty much out of the points race is that he is really helping McGrath right now by being between McGrath and Emig right here. He's going to give McGrath an advantage, and in a sense, in the first moto by McGrath being second and Emig right there in third, it's almost like McGrath won the race because really you can't even really count LaRocco. So this is a big advantage for McGrath.
Well, speaking of LaRocco, in fact, LaRocco, in order to get the overall, as long as Jeremy is leading, LaRocco has to get up to the front and pass Jeremy and actually go 1-1. Because if he would finish second here, it would be a tie, and the tiebreaker would go to Jeremy.
That's right. And, you know, Jeremy is, as I mentioned, he's pretty clever. He knows when to go hard, when to take it easy. And if LaRocco caught him and was pushing him hard out of his comfort zone, McGrath would just take it easy and go for the points lead.
Well, here's a look at the Honda field summary. Back with more in a moment. It's getting down to put up or shut up here in the closing stages of Moto number 2 here at Budds Creek, Maryland. Battle for third, LaRocco, the winner of Moto number 1, trying desperately to hold off Jeff Emig. Emig making an inside move. The rear wheel kicks out, touches LaRocco's front wheel, and Jeff Emig has moved into that third spot.
Well, that's the aggressive move I was talking about that you've got to make a pass on this racetrack. And LaRocco's going fast enough that you can't make a pass anywhere unless he makes a mistake. He's not going to. Emig senses he's got to get around, and that's an important move for Emig. All these guys are thinking title, and LaRocco's thinking title too. Yeah, I can't have it no matter how good I do.
And they take the white flag. We are on the last lap. This is the battle for third place. Jeff Emig just getting around. Mike LaRocco, Greg Albertini's in second, but nobody is within striking distance of our leader, Jeremy McGrath. Unless Jeremy falls, he's going to pick up his third moto victory of the season. And with his second in Moto number 1, he will take home the overall victory today. But look at Emig. Emig, after he got around LaRocco for that third spot, he has put some distance, and now Emig might still have enough time to challenge for the second spot.
Well, maybe. I think Albertine's really going to have to blow it here, and he's been riding pretty solid all day.
But look at Emig. Emig has closed in. At least now Albertine, he can see him. And if you can see him, you can smell him. If you smell him, you can hunt him down, right?
Possibly. It's deceiving. When they get into the tight stuff, it seems like you're closer than you really are. As soon as they get to a straightaway, it opens back up. But, you know, you can never quit trying. Once you keep the pressure on somebody, you just could force them into a mistake, and that would give him some valuable points.
Back up front, there's Jeremy McGrath, the leader. He has a pretty good lead over Albertine. Jeremy coming down the hill. You can hear the fans in the background cheering him on. You see the Homer hankies is what they call them in baseball. I don't know what we can call them in motocross, where the fans have them and wave them around. They seem to be a big favorite of the fans here at Budds Creek, Maryland.
Look at how far forward Jeremy rides on the motorcycle. Look at his head's almost over the handlebars. You can look at his front number plate almost, and that's that aggressive riding style that's worked so well for him in the Supercross, and now it's starting to pay off in the outdoors. Doing a little styling for the fans already.
A little wave over there. You never did that when you were winning on the last lap, did you? You didn't wave to the fans and all that show off like that.
I never could. I always had Brock Glover or Bob Hanna or somebody breathing down my neck.
I'm sure you had some runaway victories just like this guy.
Occasionally.
Bringing a smile to your faces, I'm sure this young man riding number 3, the Honda Red Rider, Jeremy McGrath, has a big ear-to-ear smile underneath that helmet as he is leading, about to wrap up his second overall victory of the season. Comes up the hill around the last turn. A little bit of a wheelie as he comes over. The checkered flag is out, and Jeremy McGrath comes away with his second overall victory of the season as he gets some congratulatory remarks from the guys from Honda. McGrath with the win in Moto number 2, followed by Greg Albertine, then Jeff Emig in third. Mike LaRocco is fourth, and fifth, another good comeback ride for Damon Bradshaw. And as you take a look at the rest of the top 10, Art Ekman has caught up with the second place finisher.
Well, a track that you're not unfamiliar with, Greg, but it really is your kind of track with the speeds that you can generate here. And second place, your third and second place of the year.
Yeah, third, second place. I'd like to get a first place. That's my goal. But the guys are riding incredibly well. I've got my Suzuki going really well, and my mechanic and I have been working hard. I think we're going to need a little bit of a lucky break and get a good start.
This race today, though, you really couldn't make one mistake or boom, somebody was by you.
That's right. You know, in the first moto, Jeff Emig was holding me up something terrible, and I was getting really frustrated. But second moto was a bit better. I had to make a really aggressive pass on him, and it felt good.
Well, best of luck going on now.
Thanks a lot.
Albertine, third overall with that second place finish in Moto number 2. But look who finished second overall. Mike LaRocco, what a comeback. He won Moto number 1. And as you look at the rest of the top 10, Art Ekman is with Jeremy McGrath.
Jeremy, you're determined not to give up that points lead.
Well, I want that points lead. You know, I'm in better shape this year, and I feel strong on my bike. My bike's working really good, and you know, with the combination of our sponsors, Honda, 1-800-COLLECT, and Fox, you know, I think we have a great team. It's unfortunate that Doug hurt himself today, but hopefully he'll be back next week and we can go at it some more.
One of the big keys, the pass on number 6, Jeff Emig.
Yeah, I got him in the first lap, and then I wasn't riding really a good race. I was kind of riding his own race, and then he got back by me. And then I just kind of watched his lines for a little while, and then I knew where I had a little bit better lines, and I just got a good drive out of one of the corners and just passed him.
Well, the first rider to win 3 motos this year. Congratulations, Jeremy.
Thanks a lot. I'm happy to be here.
And of course, he's extremely happy to be leading the points after 4 rounds of 12 for 1995. Jeff Emig has moved into second place, followed by Kudrowski, Dowd, and then Doug Henry. Greg Albertine, Kyle Lewis, Larry Ward, James Dobb, Mike LaRocco round out the top 10. Of course, everyone anxiously awaiting to hear just how Doug Henry is doing after that horrifying crash in Moto number 1, but it was encouraging that he gave the thumbs up sign when they carried him off.
Well, we'll all keep our fingers crossed. Doug was riding extremely well, and according to Jeremy, he's acting like possibly Doug could come back next week. Let's all hope so.
Well, of course, our prayers are with Doug Henry. See you next time. Goodbye, everybody.